the Graph Builders office hours. I am Marcus, developer relations at Edge and Node, and we are having a good Thursday, April 3. It's 1 p.m. here, Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to be going over a few different things today. And just while we're getting set up right now, let me go ahead and start the events. Here we go. Got to get the Discord set up. If you are watching on Graph Devs, we have a community in Discord. We have the Graph community in Discord where we will be answering questions and hanging out and enjoying our time. Hello. How's it going, everyone? So I'm chatting with Discord here. If you are watching on Graph Devs, feel free to keep watching. I'm not going to be able to view the chat over there. And if you are watching on Discord, I will be able to chat with you. Hello, Donal. Hello, DA. Hey, Rami. Jonathan, how's it going? Turbo Bunny. Vince, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome to another episode of the Graph Builders Office Hours. And we're going to be chatting about a few things that builders are building on today. How's it going, everybody? Waralato, hello. Vian Fernando, hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? Hey, Jana, how you doing? Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Just getting the live stream set up. Since we are live, there's a lot of things happening, as always. And I need to get all of the information out there. How's everyone doing? Feels like spring. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia right now. It is warm. Actually starting to feel warm for once. For once in a while. Feels good. Today we're going to be, I think we're going to be chatting, if we can, about the graph, knowledge graph, the GRC-20 Hackathon. The GRC-20 Hackathon is concluded, and so the results are in, which is really quite exciting to see the hackathon was a success. In the meantime, before we get talking with that, I want to let builders know out there, we have a new product in the Graph ecosystem, which is pretty dang cool. So I'm going to go ahead and get that shared right now. Let's go ahead and go Token API. It's called Token API. And if you're developing in the Graph ecosystem right now, let me share my screen. I'd highly recommend giving Token API a try. Very nice. So this is the Token API quick start right here. Go to the docs, go to, I'll actually share this in chat, where I personally would like to build a portfolio for myself where I could see all my wallets out there. And now Token API allows me to do that. I can see all of the tokens that I have in all of my wallets all at once with Token API. This is the quick start. Get going if you're developing. And for a high-level overview of what Token API can do for you, which is pretty dang cool, let's go to thegraph.com, Token API. This summarizes a lot of things, and like I already said, I can get my token balances from my wallet. Essentially, we have a wallet explorer that we can build now. We can go ahead and dive into wallets with Token API, which is really nice. We could also get token transfers. That was able to be done with subgraphs and substreams in the past. We can also do that with Token API. We can get the open, high, low, and close prices with Token API. So let's say you want to build candlesticks. Now we can build with candlesticks, and that's really, really nice. Combine that with subgraphs and substreams. That is super duper cool. And then also we have top token holders. Awesome. And I see Yaniv is in the group. We're doing announcements right now, Yaniv. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm good. How you doing?
Doing all right. Let me go ahead. Let me finish up the quick announcement with the Token API, and then we'll bring you right on. Does that sound good?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So yes, so Token API builders out there right now, these are some of the features that you can do. Check out the docs. The docs are very well made for a quick start. And another cool thing that it can do is I think it has it right here. Does it say it? It doesn't say it. I've been very impressed with the Token API plugging into MCP. And I didn't exactly know what MCP was literally a few days ago, so don't feel bad if you don't know what it is. It is think of MCP as a plugin for Cursor. And so I'll just demo that really quickly, where if we have, this is a token API quick start that I put together, and I've actually connected my LLM right here on the right to this MCP plugin, and this MCP plugin goes to the token API. So let's say I want to say, hey, could you let me know what databases you are working with the token API? So essentially, it allows real-time data to interact with the model that you are employing. And so that is a really cool thing here. Right now, it's getting a little confused. That's okay. I did this earlier. Let's see if it actually does this correctly. The MCP, here we go. Right here, I asked the question, what does MCP stand for? I was trying to figure this out. Cursor MCP integration. And then now I wanted to actually go through the token API MCP, and I'm able to go through the token API's databases live in the chat window. So if you haven't tried out MCP just yet with Cursor, if you haven't tried out the token API, they are really, really nice, where you can essentially plug in all of that data into your Cursor instance and get building right there. So go get building with Token API. It's a really cool piece of tech, and it's a new piece of tech in the Graph ecosystem. And I think that's a really good transition point to bring Yaniv into this right now, where he also is working on some new tech. And that new tech is the GRC-20 knowledge graph push that he and Geo are doing. So welcome to the stage, Yaniv. How you doing, friend? Good seeing you, and so happy you're able to come on to Graph Builders Office Hours.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you, Marcus. It was nice catching up in Denver.
Yeah,
And
really.
yeah, excited to keep things going, do a little check-in with the crew here, let people know about the latest
Yeah.
of all things happening on the GRC-20 side.
Yeah, I mean, so this hackathon, just backing up a little bit, you took point on this hackathon starting months ago. I mean, I remember talking about this months and months ago. And since then, you have been heads down with essentially navigating this hackathon, getting builders building, and now we're on the other side of the hackathon. Uh, is there anything else in terms of the big scope of this right now, where this hackathon is? Is there anything I'm missing with this?
No, so we wrapped up just a few weeks ago. We announced all the winners. So we had a really great group of developers working closely with us for 5 weeks. And congratulations to all the winners for this hackathon. Gave out 150,000 GRT in prizes. And it's been a really great process. I think everybody learned a lot and had a lot of fun and built some really cool stuff. And so, where we're at with this is we like to do this kind of stuff when we're on the bleeding edge. We like to do it in waves,
Yep.
right? You get a group together, you go deep, you explore, you build stuff, and then you incorporate all of that feedback, and then you do another round. So I think like this was such a great process. I think for all of those people who now get knowledge graphs and GRC-20, like many of the developers in this hackathon had not really like spent much time thinking about ontologies and how to structure knowledge into an interconnected graph. So the content was new for a lot of people, and people went from 0 to 60 in no time. Um, and it was a lot of fun. So we learned a lot, they learned a lot, and really excited to kind of now be at this next stage to build from.
Yeah, and I can say, as someone that has just begun my own journey of understanding knowledge graphs, there was a moment that, and I'll speak for myself personally, some people out there might have got it very quickly. For me, I had to really think through how to think differently with knowledge graphs, because it is essentially a different way of thinking. And once that happened, there was a little click. I was like, oh, oh, okay. This is a big idea. This is a big idea, and it's difficult to convey with words or with even with video. How to think about knowledge graphs. But essentially, when I did that, I started to see what you're aiming for, and I started to see what that was like for myself. Were you able to see other hackathoners who were doing the GRC-20 hackathon kind of go through that moment as well? And what was that like?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you know, the key idea with knowledge graphs, right, is that everything is interconnected, right? So we don't have these like barriers and silos between different domains and different, you know, applications. What you want is to be able to model the world as it exists, and all of the rich interconnections and relationships between different things, and make it so that you know, these things can truly be composable and interoperable. That you know, the information that's being produced by one application can be used by another application, and you don't necessarily have to hard code all of these point integrations and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, and so that's one of the, you know, key insights behind knowledge graphs. And you know, like anything, you learn by doing.
Sure,
So
of
I think
course.
people kind of got the idea, and it's like, okay, now let me try to apply this in a particular domain, right? So for this hackathon, we focused on three main areas:
Mm-hmm.
jobs, education, and regions.
Mm-hmm.
And with jobs, it was kind of focused on like, let's think through some industries, and let's think through how you would organize, you know, job-related information, like maybe different roles and skills or job openings,
Mm-hmm.
and how would you structure that? You know, with education, people looked at things like courses and research papers and things like that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
with regions, everything from, you know, local businesses that you might have in a city to some people went like really deep in like cultural areas of how do we represent the culture of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of a city. So it was really cool to see the types of explorations that people did. And then, you know, once they start doing that, then they're thinking through like ontologies.
Mm-hmm.
And ontologies are a really interesting things. You know, it's very similar to kind of like a, you know, a schema.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times with schema, you're thinking about, okay, what's the fixed structure that I need for my one application?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they tend to be based on these kind of relational models,
Mm-hmm.
where, you know, you're thinking in like in terms of a database, right? You're almost thinking of like, okay, how do I want to map this to my relational database where I
Mm-hmm.
have these tables? Whereas when you're thinking through ontologies, it's interesting because it's a different kind of process. It's similar,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not trying to map to like this particular database.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, you're deeply thinking about the structure of the actual things in the
Yeah.
world and how they relate to each other. You're like, what's the correct relationship between this thing and that thing? Like,
Yeah.
when are they the same? When are they different? Um, and
Yeah.
you know, and that by itself is a very interesting process.
Yeah.
The other thing that people did, so for the first few weeks of the hackathon, they were just working on their scripts and their tools for just dealing with data.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, you know, scraping data, using AI to generate content,
Mm-hmm.
and tooling around kind of, you know, having like a human in the loop that could check for the quality of content that's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So people were doing a lot of stuff there, and I think built up like their own tools, which kind of gives them power. I mean, it's amazing what people can do,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, today with
Yeah.
modern tools. So I think it's very empowering for people to kind of build out their own personal data stacks.
Yeah.
And then, and then at the end is like, okay, now how do we map this to the shared ontology, and how might we want to extend the ontologies, you know, for you to define your own.
Mm-hmm.
And for sure, I think, you know, we saw people have these kind of aha moments in that process, and then end up building really cool things.
It is an aha moment because this is something we naturally just do. Our brains from birth are like, okay, how do we integrate knowledge? How do we just, you know, interact with, I know Yaniv, I know the graph, I know this microphone. Like things just are related somehow, and it's just intuitive. And we think of types intuitively, you know, dog, cat, you know, like this kind of concept intuitively. And for the first time, I had to sit back and be like, okay, this isn't intuitive, but it has the potential to become intuitive. And that was an exciting thing. I'm curious when you saw that happen. And then there was many weeks ongoing. What were some of the things that you saw that people were building that you were like, exactly, this makes sense? And were there things that people were building that, oh, that doesn't make sense and also interesting? Like, was there kind of a friction there that's a healthy friction?
I think everything made sense. I think
Oh,
people
cool.
kind of got it. They had great ideas. But yeah, to your point there, I mean, I think that the thing is you almost have to unlearn, like the things that you learned as a programmer
Hmm.
before you can kind of think in this way. And I think that's the part where initially maybe it feels unintuitive because
Hmm.
we have all of this programming of how to deal with relational databases and things, right? And so that's kind of the process. I wonder how much in the future it'll be just more intuitive for people if this is their first programming model that they come to.
Yeah.
But essentially, like thinking in graphs is it is a new thing, especially at the beginning. And I think the fact that we're bootstrapping a graph right now, in the
Hmm.
early stages, like it's also going to feel very different when you come and there's already a rich interconnected graph that's already
Hmm.
there. You can kind of really understand it, and then you're just adding a little piece to it, versus in the beginning, we're creating, it's green field, right? Like
Hmm.
there's all of these spaces and we're structuring things for the first time, and so it's very exciting. But I think that's another thing that at the beginning stages, sometimes I think like what I noticed is that initial feeling of like, oh wow, you could go anywhere with this. There's like so much kind of like space. So I think that's
Yeah.
the thing that like for some people kind of catches them,
Yep.
but that's where being part of these early rounds is so exciting because you kind of get to be a pioneer. You kind of get to
Hmm.
be like, okay, we're the first people assembling, the initial villages here on this like open land,
Hmm.
and that's exciting. We can do it any way we want,
Hmm.
and so for certain types of people, that's an exciting place to be, and they kind of
Yeah.
thrive in that environment. And then
Yep.
we're going to build out the initial scaffolding of all of this stuff
Hmm.
before then it becomes a lot easier for the next group to come in and join.
Yeah, and for me, understanding knowledge graph, it helps to establish already built schemas in my mind, just how life works and how interactivity of computers work. And when I started to understand what knowledge graphs can do, it was very much like, okay, what happened if we had Apple Music, Spotify, Netflix, all of these things that I subscribe to? I have a YouTube subscription, I have a Spotify, I have all these things. What if they were composable? What if
That-
they were composable?
That's
And
right.
and that's essentially the big vision of this, where there could be a Spotify and a knowledge graph. There could be a YouTube and built with these fundamentals and being able to pass data and essentially have composable interactivity of this data with a shared agreement at a certain level. And
Hmm.
that to me, I was like, okay, that's cool. Because if you ever want to build, let's say, with any of these closed ecosystems, you got to pony up. It'll be expensive and lock in and all these things that are what we're trying to get away from. And so I'm quite excited for that future and to start with a baked in data set. Baked in is not the right word, but essentially data sets that your hackathon has built that's already helping developers in the next step, in the next iteration of the knowledge graph, which I'm very excited for. When you are seeing these builders build, was there any one project that comes to mind or any way that they were going through this hackathon that you were like, that's really this is special. This is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, people built some really cool things. I'd love to show you some examples.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see.
All right, let's see here. So, share my screen and let me know if you're able to see it.
Yeah, you bet.
Oh no, I actually need to potentially leave and come back in order to do this. Let's see
All
here.
good. No worries. Yeah, it's okay. We're in streaming in Discord right now. Unfortunately, the stream is broken right now in Discord. So if anyone's out there in Discord, hi, feel free to keep on chatting in Discord while you're streaming on X. I'm still taking questions here. So hi, Discord friends. Feel free to drop questions here for Yaniv. Um, as you are streaming on X. Link is above, arrow up. Let's see if I can. I think it's there too. Yeah, I just shared it again. So yes, stream on X. Feel free to stream there. the stream is working, and ask questions over on Discord. Unfortunately, the stream to Discord is not working, but we will still be able to get this information out there. So that's really important. So awesome. Yaniv is back. Yeah, I was just telling.
I'm back. By the way, do you know if that would have lost my audio?
Um, I I don't know. But the good news is the entire stream is live streaming right now, so we have a recording backup no matter what.
Amazing.
So yeah, we will be able to manage this no matter what. I've done this I think for almost 70 episodes now, so it's I don't know how many episodes, but we've had everything happen up, down, left, right, all the way through. So, but yes, I'd love to see the hackathon project that you'd like to share. Let's go for it.
Yeah, so let's do it. Okay, so you can see my screen?
Yep, I can see.
All right, so right now we're just kind of at the home of GeoGenesis. And there's just a few spaces that we have here right now. We still have a bunch of content that we're going to be migrating over from our old deployment. But the first thing I want to show is some of the things that have been happening in the crypto space. So here we do have a set of editors. This has been happening outside of the hackathon, excuse me, where there's a group of editors that have been adding crypto news day after day with links to the original sources, the different articles that are covering things, extracting claims. And it's pretty cool to see already, this starting to become, quite a usable news source. This is where I like to get my crypto news right now, which is pretty cool here in the crypto space.
That's cool.
But one of the hackathon participants organized a bunch of jobs for the crypto space. And this to me is super cool. So, in this tab, you can see, different ways of kind of browsing jobs. And then these are kind of examples of job openings. Like, these are kind of data blocks presented as lists for a few different companies, for example, and then you could see as a table like all job openings, so different like positions at different projects, and different roles. So I think it's actually really cool to organize, what are all the different roles within an industry, and maybe you could even see how many job openings are there for a particular role across an industry. And you could get some really great insights that way. Also skills, right? Specific skills. Maybe you're at the beginning of your educational journey. Maybe you didn't even know that product management or product design was, a route that you could take, and maybe you want to learn, and you could see which job openings, use certain skills, and that could help inform your career journey.
And this was a specific individual or a team who really took
Yeah,
point on putting a lot of this information in.
that's right. This was
Yeah.
one project. So you can see here, whenever you open this up, right, you can see the history of any page, which is really cool. Right, it's this way we actually have, it's like Git for data. And you can see in this case who approved this change to the public space, because this was added to public space. So here Armando approved this in, Ilya published it. And this is kind of blockchain-based timestamps for all knowledge and information. So I'm going to go back. So yeah, it was this guy Ilya, and we can see here, right, for this job opening, here's the job post. And down here we can see details here. I think we've changed how we format these things now. We're adding better number and date formatting, so we'll be able to do this better. But we have kind of like the salary range, and here are the skills, right? So it's all interconnected, and the roles. So this here is for a technical partner success manager, and you could go further. I guess there aren't a lot of folks hiring for that particular role. If you click on something like this, so here's a Golang engineer job opening. Maybe so the role here is like blockchain developer, if we come here, yeah, still not too many. So just a few examples here. Now, each of these pages could really be filled out with even more content.
Yeah, and I think I do remember very specifically a conversation with you where you said entities all the way down.
Yeah.
Entities all the way, turtles all the way down, entities all the way down. These are, and for anyone who's a developer who's worked with entities, everything we're seeing right here is either an entity or a relation. And essentially a relation is also an entity. So everything is very much composable, and there's certain amounts of properties on each of these entities. But if we start with the most simple primitive, which is that GRC-20 spec that you worked so hard on, and you and your team, Yaniv, once you drop this out there in public, it extends so fast and expands so fast. You know, supporting jobs, supporting information, supporting however composable knowledge and data that you'd like to. It really does look like a spider web, in my mind at least, when this occurs and all this information starts to really proliferate rapidly.
That's right. It's
Yeah.
a whole new web. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love this example with Binance because like imagine you're on Lever or something like that, and maybe you have job openings right on a thing like that. But the fact that here, right, you can click on the Binance project, and then there's a whole page for Binance. So
Right.
some of the other pages that I showed, there wasn't a lot of content there yet.
Sure.
But here's an example of maybe a project page. You could see, okay,
Yeah.
what are the recent, news stories about this project? Who are some of like the high profile, people that are part of
Yep.
that project?
Yep.
Things like that. So um, once you kind of start connecting everything together, you do
Yep.
have, this kind of whole new web. And for each of those
Yep.
things, you can see where's the information coming from. And,
Yep.
and importantly, it's open. And I
Right.
think this is something that's happening with like so many of these new like AI systems. Obviously, AI is transforming how we interact with knowledge and information, but
Hmm.
many of these are closed systems. So, if I'm using an AI and, it gives me some answers back and it's wrong or it's incomplete or it doesn't know something, like there's nothing that I can really do to like improve it.
Hmm.
Whereas if it's something like this and I see like, hey, you actually don't know like this change that's no longer up to date. If you can actually have a process by which you can come in and edit and like fix it, and then going forward, the questions will be able to answer, it will be able to use the new information, and
Yeah.
you can see the full provenance of where did it come from.
Right.
That is really, I think, the missing piece for having global knowledge and information that is,
Yeah.
easily accessible and available and open.
Right. Right.
So,
And
so this was one cool project with the crypto jobs, and right now this, maybe some of these have already kind of gone stale, but some of what we're working on is, the tooling for keeping this kind of stuff up to date, and that's something that we want to do is make sure that for some of these things like, job openings, they come and go, that we can update that information in real time.
yep.
And so these are the sorts of things that we're working on to try to make sure that we have really quality, up-to-date knowledge and information.
Hmm.
And then I'd love to show one more example of something completely outside of the crypto space that I think
Sure.
is a really great kind of lens or view of what kinds of things people can do with this. So
Sure.
somebody came in and wanted to try to organize knowledge and information about the U.S. court system, right? This is somebody who's studying law and thought this would be an interesting thing to bring onto the knowledge graph, and so they created this U.S. law space. Now, funny enough, they had gigabytes of data that they wanted to publish to the knowledge graph, and they did that on the Sunday, the very last day of the hackathon, and basically brought our indexer to a complete crawl. And so, good reminder of how important good indexing is, and this is something that has pushed us, and that we're now improving our indexer to make sure that we can keep up with this kind of volume of information. But so here, we can see different courts throughout the U.S. and there's a bunch of different courts, and these are all organized, and we can see different judges and um, And for the different judges in the different courts, like there's a ton of information about the dockets and the different opinions and things. So sorry, so right now we have this on a separate deployment because it was taking so many resources, and I think it's currently kind of spinning up. So it's some of the stuff is going to be a little bit slow to load. Um, but let me look at for an example. So I look up Clarence Thomas, right, is a judge, and that should come up. Here we go. And it's one cool thing here, right, is with the search, um, right, we can search the global graph. And so here is Clarence Thomas, and here are a bunch of his like opinions, right, his lead opinions, um, things that he's put out. We can see some things around um, information about him, right? He works at the Supreme Court of the United States. I can hover on this, right? If I click on this, I can see more details about the Supreme Court, for example. And I can see here are the current judges of the Supreme Court. Here are some past judges. And here, court opinions by the Supreme Court. These are the judges that participated in these opinions. I could learn about these. This one kind of went conservative. I could learn more about kind of this particular opinion group from 1995, and there's like a lot of content here.
Right.
Um,
And you brought this up earlier about the kind of the salience of data, where it comes and goes, and there's relevant that's up to date by the second, that's important to have to the second, like maybe not the second, but recently job posting. I would want to know if it's stale data or not. That involves having that come in and be relevant. And then if there's a justice, or let's say a president or someone who's that piece of data, once it's updated once, that's there. We know that piece of information is in history. So the updating of that is less important. The interesting thing that I am seeing with this kind of framework is, let's say we have multiple sources of jobs, with monster.com, and we have, I don't know, there's another, job site out there, Web3 jobs. There's a few different Web3 job companies out there. And then also we have a few different others. How do we share this knowledge and have a place of agreement for this? And how do we update that regularly? I think this provides that opportunity where a lot of people can come in and get that information and bring it into a place that can be updated regularly and can have that. It also allows for the flexibility of data that doesn't need to be updated all the time. Historical data that is just, once it's updated once, we have the history. There can be people that say, hey, there's more information and can change that and try to create the best example of that history. But for the most part, like once Supreme Court is in there, and it's 2025, and this is the judges in 2025, and well, that's going to be it. So this is the framework that allows for really the collaborative data sharing that can come through when there's so much dispersion of knowledge in the internet. It does provide a nice platform for there to be data coming in fast or slow, whatever is necessary, and provide a weight of consensus for that data.
That's exactly right. And so what it allows you to do is really good quality aggregation.
Yeah.
Like you said, where this data can come from lots of different sources. And what we can do is we can attribute all of those sources. So we can have links, relations that point to this came from here, this came from there. But then you can aggregate it and you can create your own custom views on top of all of that. So you can easily create your own tables and lists and galleries and different things. So you can have your own views on those things, and then you can have like a curation layer on top, right? So once you're aggregating everything, and you can really organize it and curate it, and then also kind of provide input. And so as individuals, you can see things exactly the way you want, and then as communities, you can have ways to create like shared leaderboards and shared views on things so that your community can be on the same page. And I think that's really important, right? I think a big part of what we need to do now in society is this combination of empowering individuals, empowering communities, while also trying to reestablish shared institutions and shared ways of working together, right, that people can trust. And if you have a good system and a good process for bringing people together, then people opt in to participating in these larger and larger groups, and that's part of what we want to do. And like you're saying, when you have so much information coming from so many different data sources, if you give people better tools to organize and aggregate all of those things, then what it allows you to do is much better sense making, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
ultimately, right, we're all bombarded with information,
Yeah.
and you want to kind of empower groups so it's not each individual has to fend for themselves to make sense of everything that's happening, right? You can kind of have these subgroups with their interest areas, and they can organize and curate, their portions, but then everything is kind of interconnected.
Yeah. And that interconnectivity, that way of connecting data from the bottom up is something that's quite exciting. So I'm really happy the hackathon went well. I'm happy that we're getting data in there for builders who are on that next frontier of building with knowledge graphs, building with GRC-20. And what I want to say is, for you talking to any builders out there who are watching this, or really anyone involved in Web3 as a whole, is there anything that you'd like to kind of propose to them with this knowledge graph idea? Because, I mean, literally to get developers to change what they're doing, and they're already busy as hell. They already have 1,000 things to do. Is there something that you'd want to like say to them to kind of like, hey, this is for the next X amount of months or years to just to stay aware of this push?
Yeah, yeah, this is what I would say to people. So we do have a set of tools that we're going to be putting out soon that enables people to build really great consumer apps on top of this kind of knowledge graph foundation. So, right now, at this moment, it's more for tinkers and kind of, we're finalizing some things on the GRC-20 side, and so just kind of hold tight there if you want to jump in and play around. We're happy to have you in the Geo Discord, but we've got some really exciting things coming very soon. So keep an eye out for that. And the main thing that I would say is that many of us have been building in this Web3 space for a long time,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
there's been kind of this vision of Web3, and it kind of goes through these cycles where you kind of have these manic expansion phases, and then you have these periods where
Yeah.
everybody's like, well, what is this stuff actually good for, and does it even let you do anything? And maybe right now we're closer to the second phase than the first phase
Depends on the
in
week.
this
It literally depends on the week.
particular moment in time.
Yeah.
And what I would say is, like, there's something like very real and very big about what we're all building, right? Like Web3 is foundationally important for the future of the internet, for civilization. But we're only going to get the benefits when we build the stuff the right way. And I think trying to define what does the right way mean, that's been difficult. And obviously the graph has contributed a lot to this over the years. But we're not done yet, and it is very tempting to, solve problems in a, just in a quick way. And at some point, if when we do that, um, maybe you can get to market faster or something, but at some point it becomes kind of a Web 2 application, right? And
Mm.
it's very easy to kind of, because we know how to build Web 2 apps, and
Mm.
that's kind of like the default. And then it's like, okay, well, so is crypto Web 3, is it just good because we have payments? Like, is it the crypto rails? So now you pay with USDC, and is that what makes Web 3 different from Web 2? Um, I don't think it's quite that. I
Mm.
think that the money Legos are an amazing addition to the toolkit, um, but I still believe in the vision of Web3 separate from the DeFi side of things,
Mhm.
and so I think we're in the early stages of building out this platform, but when it works and when it's complete, what we will see is this kind of exponential growth of this new type of application right? That all is contributing to something that is much better for users and that people will want to use. And your products and apps will be so much more successful because they're part of this giant movement.
Hmm.
And but to be part of that giant movement, you need to kind of build the stuff the right way, right? The same way that, like, if you're doing stuff in DeFi and you build on Ethereum, you're immediately going to have a much larger audience
Hmm.
than if you're building on some random chain that nobody's on and whatever, right? And that's kind of the power of composability, right? In DeFi, we see this like on-chain composability with liquidity and things like that. So
Hmm.
with Web3, I think we want to achieve the same thing with information,
Hmm.
right? So it's like what DeFi did for composability of value on chain, we need to do the same thing with the composability of information across applications.
Hmm.
And once we do that, like, this thing is just going to grow so fast, and it's going to be so much better than the alternative. Because why would I as a user want to use an application where I'm locked into this one app and it's hard to, like, to use that information in another app? And,
Hmm.
like, once you have that taste of true composability and interoperability, I think you're not going to want to go back.
Hmm.
And I think that the early developers that participate in this are going to be rewarded, right? I
Yeah.
think, like, those are going to be kind of the breakthrough apps.
Hmm.
um, and so I think, like, with anything entrepreneurs, you're looking for users, you want to get a product out there that's solving a real pain point. If you're doing something like that, keep at it. You
Hmm.
know, the entrepreneurial journey is a beautiful one where, it takes a lot of work. You're pushing really hard. So, props to anybody who is, on that journey. Um, but let's, remember uh, that this new platform is going to be a fundamentally new thing. It's going to enable all kinds of new ways of people to coordinate and work together, and we just have to build this stuff the right way to truly realize that vision, enable the composability and the interoperability. So, yeah, super excited to, as we kind of open stuff up more, we launch the stuff that's coming up, to talk to teams that are building interesting things and help them think through, how can they do it in, this way that is truly, composable and interoperable.
Hmm.
And we love to help you build these killer apps.
Yeah, love it. And that's a great way to end it. Help you build these killer apps. I feel like that's what we're trying to do in a Web3 way that competes directly with the big dogs out there in the Web2 space. That's why Web3 is here, to compete with what is known. And I feel like this provides primitives to compete effectively. So I'm very excited for knowledge graphs moving forward. I'm excited for GRC-20. I'm excited for the next iteration of whatever you and your team are deciding to do with GRC-20. And I'm, happy to have you guys on and any builders out there in the who submitted to the GRC-20 hackathon. I want to continue this going because this idea is big enough that the only way that I really see the full fruition, full vision of this coming true is if people start to do that little thing and oh, I get it, that little bit at the beginning and understanding what this can be. Because right now, if out there you don't understand what this is just now, you haven't made that switch, go ahead, and that's okay. That is totally normal because I was there too. But take the time if you can, get heads down with this for a few minutes and try to understand knowledge graphs from a bigger picture because what they can do is really impressive. So, Yaniv, thank you so much for your time. And anytime you want to come back on to Graph Builders Office Hours, you're more than welcome to. And thank you, everyone out there in the audience, for participating in this episode of Graph Builders Office Hours. I'll let you, Yaniv, have the last word, and we'll sign off from there.
So it's always a good time hanging out with you, talking shop. Appreciate you bringing me on, and big power up to all the Web3 builders out there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Yaniv, once again for your time. And thank you, everyone, for joining another episode of Graph Builders Office Hours. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Al.
All right. So that went very well.
Yay.
That
Great.
was that was super smooth. The